The Indian civilization is not a yesterday's civilization, not on some whimsical things. The very important thing is not only it is ancient most in the world, because other ancient contemporary civilizations of India all got destroyed, excepting for India, she could stand the test of time. That is very, very important. That one, how it can stand the test of time until and unless there is some very hard it will be destroyed by time. It will be destroyed by assaults. Not only time, but the number of assaults and invasions that took India to anywhere not less than a hell. It survived. Now we survive, we cry, we have their wails and cries and all these complaints of all of supernatural degree. Just see the self humiliation and self mistrust India have. No country have it. Why? Because we have gone through a very, very long path of civilizational development. It is a very long path. If I am born today, I will learn to praise myself. Then next day I will to learn to correct my follies. Then I will be mature enough to really agree to my folly. Then I will be mature enough to recognize others' goodness. Then I will try to imbibe the goodness and become more and more developed. Then I will try fall in the trap of jealousy. Then I will be to fall in the trap of name and fame and other luxurious glitters. And like that, as a human develop, a country develops. So it's a long way. Now, all the civilizations we see around, and we think their words as our Gita, our Veda, our Bible, and we copy them. In which juncture of historical timeline you have to see? They are all not born not more than 400 years old, say 1,000 years old at the most. We are the descendant of rishis. We are the descendant of seers of the truth, the final discoverer of final possible desire of human mind. We achieved that. That has been discussed and mentioned by Dr. Previous speaker, our Mrinal Babu. So, and I was delighted when I was listening to Dr. Devi Prasad Mishra ji that he mentioned two very important things. We will come to that slowly. Um, Now, in this timeline, where India stands, it is a super mature race. When none of the races were existent, what the other races are telling, countries are telling, we have crossed those barriers much earlier than any other race. Swami Vivekananda was a person we are extremely fortunate to get this type of extraordinary friend, thinker, seer, and whatnot. That we are redeemed, that we get the light from the immense darkness of civilizational fog. What we see now, why we speak after all the development and alternative philosophy. Why? Because the present philosophy, the song of life we are following, we are victim more than get victorious about. What our Professor Mishra was mentioning nicely. So, we are in the juncture of rethinking. Swami Vivekananda was a past master in visionary. He used to say, I can see the history of 1500 years just in front of my eyes. Do this. You have to come to this point. Let us start with some quotations of Swami Vivekananda. I shall read something masterpiece. What Swamiji says, shall India die? Then from the world all spirituality will be extinct. All moral perfection will be extinct. All sweet-souled sympathy of religion will be extinct. All ideality will be extinct. And it is in its place will reign the duality of lust and luxury as the male and female deities, with money as its priest, fraud, force, and competition its ceremonies, and the human soul its sacrifice. Such a thing can never be. Will she die? This old mother of all, that the noble or moral or spiritual, the land which the sages trod, the land in which godlike men still live and breathe. I will borrow the lantern of the Athenian sage and follow you, my brother, through the cities of villages and plains and forests of its broad world. Show me such men in other lands if you can. This is a challenge Swamiji gives. And then he says, India will be raised, not with the power of the flesh, but with the power of the spirit, not with the flag of destruction, but with the flag of peace and love. One vision I see clear as life before me, that the ancient mother has awakened once more, sitting on her throne rejuvenated, more glorious than ever. Proclaim her to all the world with the voice of peace and benediction. The point is, in Gita, Bhagavan says, Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashaha. Whatever previous speaker was elaborating nicely upon, and it is a very small part he could really deal with, because time was not sufficient for the immense amount of things he was dealing so wisely. So let me come to a very smaller way so that we can come to a sort of conjuring up the whole thing in a small space, which is not possible, of course. The guru of Vivekananda, the latest and most perfect of the seers, the experiencer of spiritual truth, Sri Ramakrishna, was a Brahmin by birth. Nowadays, of course, in his time that those things were there, still now it is there. What we are carrying with us of this Chaturvanya is just a remnant rot of what it was actually meant for. It is not that it is totally followed, properly followed. It is all the degraded and degenerated part of what it was meant for. Like a sweet is meant for eating. Now you keep it for 40 days, it becomes a rotten, stinky material. And if you are given to eat that, you will be malnourished instead of getting nourishment. So it is like that what we got. But it is in our Vedas only. It is said for everybody. It is the universality. Swamiji says, for one single value, I can give up all the values. I give up all the values. All values. What is that? He said it is universality. Universality. Then he says how universality is connected with our divinity in nature, which is again a proclamation of Vedas. We are all divine by inside. It is only proclamation which can rejuvenate the world forever. Swamiji says that you are pure by nature. Whoever you are, Brahman, Kshatriya, Shudra, whoever you are, it may be a social dispensation, but never forget the real truth. You are divine by nature. No one can destroy it. That's why when he uttered in the recent past, we can see in the Chicago, when he's uttering that Shanvantu Vishve Amritasya Putra Ye Dhamani Divyani Tastu Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam, etc. When he's really chanting those chants like Rishi, whole unknown, unaware people of different language and creed and area. They were enthralled. They were enthralled. They did not come for getting enthralled by themselves. Rather, it was meant to oppose other religion than Christianity. But they were enthralled. And he says, "Oh, you are the child of immortality. We call all of you Shrinvantu, Vishwe." Vishwe means Mahavishwa, everybody. Sarve bhavantu sukhina. This always will find. It is an universal approach. Universal approach. There is not. Now, how to implement that universal approach was all the things our rishis did. And Swamiji said every time it was correct, but it needs every time re-edition and recorrection. This is called smriti. You have to correct the smriti. You have to correct the implementational procedure of the same age-old truth. Now, Chaturvanyam Maya Srishtam. But when you find, as our Mrinal Babu was showing, the Shankara was really dead against the Shudras. Shudra is a Gunakarma Vibhagasha. It is true. Let me come slowly. Shudra is a state of our mind. Maybe all of we have a little bit of Shudra in us, and who have more that qualities. He may be called a Shudra. What is that? One is, he said, from Shuch, who is sad mongering. He is sadist. He is melancholous. He is fault finder. He is destructive in nature. We do it with ourselves. Everybody does. And there are people, as Gunakarma Vibhagasha, these are the Gunakarma, it is prepared. It is given to the man. So, all the types of man. In a garden, you find a flower plant, a fruit plant, a thorny plant, a poisonous plant. It is all the creation. We take all the creation in our ambit. And that was the purpose. How to develop all together. It was a development of all. Swamiji says, my motto is to develop a Chandala to Brahmana. When Shankara was writing and expounding on those things, he came to this very place of Kashi where I am living now. And he was walking with his people to take a bath in Ganga. Then, as it were, Shiva himself, who was the deity, who was the god of the sages, he came in between in the disguise of a Chandala and stood in front of Shankaracharya, who is a knower of Brahman, but with all the problem of behavioral problems. He knows the whole Jagat, everything. He is fearless, deathless. He knows even if you kill him, nothing will happen to him. But there was a tinge of behavioral problem. And Shiva, see, our human anthology, human ethos, our Indian ethos, you see, Shiva. We don't know who is Shiva, no historical figure. But he is a figure of truth which comes to a proper seeker. That is accepted by all the religions of the whole world. People still get the vision of Christ, of Muhammad, of who not. So there is a truth. It is not that we are making and breaking as we wish. So to teach Shankara the last beat of folly in his behavior, Shiva came and stood in his way and told, you cannot go to Ganga. If you go, you have to touch me. Then Shankara was so angry. He said, Duram apasarare chandala, he says, go away from my path. Then the Chandala took its shape of Shiva. How can it be? Then Shankara could realize the problem, what he was dealing with so far. And he could come to a conclusion, it is not so. It is not so. Now come to the latest edition of these Godheads. In the beginning itself, Sri Ramakrishna being the highest caste person, he, to just remove that he is belonging to a high caste, which is an impediment to know the truth. If I keep that difference in my mind, I can never know the truth that came to a child Gadadhar. And he wanted to remove it. We all think we can remove by thinking or reading and manana. He did not wait for manana alone. He was a very smart person, extremely scientific, extremely practical, and he did not do anything other than until and unless it is practiced in practicality. What he did? There was a Shudra called Rasik. He was a person who cleans latrine and everything, latrine, drains, and lavatories. He was living in Dakshineshwar. Those days, the lavatories are still more dirty. There is no sanitation proper. All type of dirty latrines were there. Just next development from going to field. It was all stinky, littered with spoilages. It was absolutely a very bad step in social custom. A Brahmin will talk to a Shudra. It was there. All enjoyed it. But the seeker of truth, Sri Ramakrishna, did not enjoy it. He was very cautious. I must get out of this stinky idea, which is an impediment of knowing of truth. What should I do? I should do it when nobody comes to know what I am doing. He did a tremendous revolution. We even cannot think of the revolution. He went in the dark of the night when everybody is sleeping. To where? To the latrine and lavatories. That time he was a past master of a yogi. He has realized Jagannatha and the truth. He has matted long hairs. What we see as Sri Ramakrishna's picture is not that way. He had long matted hairs. He was completely ignorant of his body. He was realizing truth. The Jagannatha, the mother of the whole universe. Who is she? If there is she like that, then it must be known the real nature of that. So that I can know everything, like the Upanishad's words, Kasminna Bhagava Vijnati Sarvamidam Vijnatam Bhavati, by which I can know everything. How could it come? If wealth could have satisfied us? So wealth did not satisfy Indians. India is a land of question, not a land of rituals and rites and stringent ceremonies. They are the simple way to execute the mental freedom. Whatever you are speaking about, the freedom of speech, freedom of thought should not be curtailed. So what this person of freedom personified, Sri Ramakrishna. He went in the dark of the night to the latrine of the parias, of the Shudras. What did he do? He could have stand there. No. He went to the latrine inside. He took his matted hairs in his hand. He literally wiped and cleaned the latrines and lavatories. We will say, it was necessary, so much dirty things. You have no idea where the prejudice remains. You have no idea how we are egoistic, how we really ignored the mass. We enjoyed the privilege, in the name of superiority, instead of executing our responsibilities. We were never responsible for the people. Just to remove the ego, he wiped the latrine of Rasik Methar to get out of the idea that I am any way superior to him. I am no way superior to him. I am the son of the mother, and everybody is children of mother. All are equal in her eyes. This is Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. It is not a joke to speak it. Swamiji says, my work is to give back the individuality of the Indian people, what they have lost, miserably lost. After tremendous amount of tyranny, torture, executions, and having tremendously broad Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Shrinvantu Visve, all these things in our blood, we never know rejection. Muslims came with a funny and heinous chuckle in their face to conquer and get some money, like looters. But they were imbibed. Please come and see it. Atithi Devo Bhava. Well, you are a looter, but we have generations together handed down a tremendous amount of heritage and tradition. We know Atithi Devo Bhava. Unbelievable. So unbelievable, tremendous realizations has been converted and tortured and distorted and whatnot, misinterpreted and misnarrated and mistaught with all hooks and crooks, with invasion by power, by pain, by methods, by methodology, by bribe and whatnot. And we Indian went on taking and taking tremendous amount of forbearance. Swamiji says the Indians have ages together taken the torture and persecution of everybody. And by that, they have acquired the tremendous power of Brahma Tejas. By a small piece of bread, they can upside down the whole world. This is the Brahma Tej we don't understand. Now, Swami Vivekananda was very specific. The reason of downfall of India, the ways and means to get the India up. And, and along with that, he was a prophet. He says, I see it is seated in the throne, what I read just now. I see it is don't think. Now, this is an unthinkable world, the unthinkable area of truth, which cannot be explored by everybody. But we can help things doing. Now we are at the brink that we must do, otherwise it will die. Now, Swamiji, after that will India die? He says one wonderful thing. I will again read it. Who are eligible for rejuvenating India? Who are eligible? Swamiji says one nice way. We have the doctrine of Vedanta, but we have not the power to reduce it into practice. In our books, there is the doctrine of universal equality, but in work, we make great distinctions. It was in India that unselfish and disinterested of the most exalted type was preached. But in practice, we are awfully cruel, awfully heartless, unable to think of anything besides our own mass of flesh bodies. I too believe that India will awake again if anyone could love with all his heart the people of the country, bereft of the grace, of affluence, of blasted fortune. Their discretions totally lost, for downtrodden, ever starved, quarrelsome, and envious, then only will India awake. When hundreds of large-hearted men and women giving up all desires of enjoying the luxuries of life will long and exert themselves to their utmost for the well-being of the millions of the countrymen who were gradually sinking lower and lower in the vortex of destruction and ignorance. The more, therefore, the Hindus study the past of the glorious will be their future. And whoever tries to bring the past to the door of everyone is a great benefactor of his nation. The degeneration of India came not because of laws and customs and ancients were bad, but because they were not allowed to be carried to their legitimate conclusions. That is the practicing part. That's a very important part. And he says, I consider that the great national scene is the neglect of masses, and that is one of the causes of our downfall. No amount of politics would be of any avail until the masses of India are once more well educated, well fed, well cared for. They pay for our education, they build our temples, but in return, they get kicks. They are practically our slaves. If we want to regenerate India, we must work for them. So we find Swamiji was being completely enlightened by his guru and the Sarvadharma Samanvaya, and knowing the truth himself, he could really make the path out of the darkness. What could be the path? Now, before knowing the path, we must know the reason. If we don't go to the reason, we will grope in the dark. What is the reason for the downfall? Now, Swamiji has discovered on the very important crux of the disease, which is coming in different forms. Just forms are different, but the disease deep inside is one. Swamiji has discovered his person is the only person who speaks this absolutely wonderful political, social, and spiritual problem of India. What is that? He says, this is tremendously fallen and dark phase of India is because we have been put to slave for ages. It is the fallen, it is the real sign of a fallen race. What is that? We have been enslaved and enslaved for thousands of years, and we have forgot that we are the son of the rishis. We are once upon a time the torchbearer of knowledge, of apara and para, of worldly and beyond, for the whole world. I am very happy to know that IIT has already established one department to inquire into deep into the ancient Indian civilizational and technological heights. But that is a problem. First, we are slaves. Then we think to become a good slave of the invaders is a great virtue of us. We become babus by bribing, by treachery, by cheating people. And the slaves are most notorious in their community. They are very good as slaves, but they are notorious torturers in the community. So we don't allow anybody's talent. We don't allow anybody's upsurgence. We don't allow anybody's coming up. You are jealous. Swamiji says this jealousy, this absolute absence of working together, ability to work together is the reason of one of the reasons of the downfall. Now, because we become completely enslaved in our mind, the torture and sort of forbearance made us forget about the real truth of forbearance, real executional way of forbearance. Ahimsa paramo dharma, dharma himsa tasaiva, we forgot. I am wealthy, I can give people, but I must have a house. Not abandoning our house and go astray like a beggar and become a man of equality. It is a beggar. So we unwittingly, without proper studying, that's why Swamiji says it was not meaningfully executed. And he cursed the traditional way of thinking that paramarthika and vyavaharika. That they used to say this is the paramarthika satya, that you are all potential divine, but not vyavaharika. Swamiji says, my work is to make you know that you are all the divinity, you are all potentially perfect and children of divinity, and to show them how to execute that truth in every moment of life. That is my work. That is the work. Now, after getting completely enslaved in mind and body, we started copying our masters. We kicked our shastras, we kicked our wisdoms from our house, from our universities, college, friends, parents. Grandparents were whispering something of some apologetic approach after all the slavery you purchased from the other countries. Then you become apologetic. And what not on these wounded Indians happened. The whole education system was completely crypto anti-Indian. One thinker used to say that it is the only Indians who are taught to hate their own civilization. We are systematically taught to hate. This completely self-abnegating race has no other recluse other than going to lick the feet of the master. So what we are doing? We are purchasing torn jeans in 5,000 rupees and throwing all the 120 completely unique, world elevating cloth weaving patterns which is existing in India. And moreover, see the beauty of it. Not to prove that India is great, we are giving a proof to the Western countries in terms of material development of ancient India. As if that is the only way to prove that I am great. It is the India which took in ambit the whole gamut of human existence, starting from birth and ending in a beautiful death. The Chaturbanya, the Chaturashrama. Come to the Chaturashrama. Not even the king and beggar will be distincted by the guru of Chaturashrama. All has to be sent there. They will learn life. They will learn health. They will learn enjoyment. They will learn righteousness, how to enjoy properly so that it should not hurt others. And they will learn death. They will take everything in ambit. They will not make 10-story building by cheating 20,000 people and killing 10,000 person and hating others, getting 20,000 rupees of pills and medicines every night. And before death, he will cry and wail that what I am going, please save me. These idiots were not Indians. But India is a sleeping, Swamiji used to say, sleeping Leviathan. She is not dead, she is just sleeping. And one of the great thinkers of India, Swami Saradananda, used to say that it is the India, the only land from ages and ages and ages. This completely confused humanity, absolutely mummed and completely prejudiced, mistaken, misled humanity in the door of death. Whatever the shouts and all, amongst all this darkness in the name of glitters and civilization, India is the only person, only light, where the seers are born. It is not a common person work. It is a work of a tremendously highly developed and extraordinary thinkers. Who are they? We say them God man. See the Buddha. See everybody. Swamiji says very, very categorically, very, very emphatically. And he gives one beautiful, I should mention it. One second. He says, did India ever stand in want of reformers? Do you read the history of India? A very important question. We don't have a history of India. We could have had. Being slave, we had a distorted, rotten, wrong, completely derogatory, self-hating, self-demeaning history running for more than 70 years in an independent country. What a tremendous pity. Who are the older people? They can easily say it. I have interviewed many freedom fighters. Go to the anthology, go to their diaries. What happened actually? He says, do you read the history of India? Who was Ramanuja? Who was Shankara? Who was Nanak? Who was Chaitanya? Who was Kabir? Who was Dadu? Who were all these great preachers? One following the other, a galaxy of stars of the first magnitude. They all tried, and their work is still going on. The difference is this on the lips, as modern reformers have, is pronounced only. It makes a whole world of difference. We must grow according to our nature. When is the attempt? Is to attempt in the lines of actions of that foreign societies have engulfed upon us. It is impossible. I do not condemn the institutions of the other races. They are good for them, but not for us. What is meat for them may be poison for us. So there are a lot of shades of development. Now, blind copying, blind enslaving, that has brought that. He says the world of it makes a world of difference. When we lose our identity, The self pride is gone. The man is dead. The man is dead. How far with an MIT and PhD and some degrees will be great? You will be as most as great of as those civilization dictates us to become great. They are a dictated greatness we are striving for. So Swamiji's important message is neglect of truth, neglect of lower caste, trampling them underfoot, neglecting the woman, misinterpreting the jati, misinterpreting the equality, having completely jealous relation amongst yourselves, and having in the ambit of complete hypnosis of slavery. These are the main problems. He says, darkness, 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 shouting will not remove darkness, bring light. So you will see when we read Swamiji, every word is full of light. Even Rabindranath Tagore, a thinker of a long ages, 80 years old when he passed away, with all his flowery, beautiful thoughts. Suddenly, when he read Swamiji, he glared up and said, if you want to know India, read Swamiji. He had to, because there is no negativity in it. Negativity does not bring positivity. Self-criticism does not mean envy and curse and punishment. These all systems are borrowed from the West. We have no curse. And see the beauty of Ashrama. He will be completely healthy. No sort of adolescent perversion nowadays. Not sort of selfish, cocoonized family teaching, parent teaching her children how to become selfish. They don't know the selfish kid will once upon a time, after they become old, they will send you to the old age home with all gratitude. Conscience will not be pricking them. But it was the Guru Grihavasa, one teacher. We must make a teacher. We must make parents. It is because of the lack of parents and teacher. If we don't call teacher in our India also, we call them Acharya. We never teach. Swami says a teacher spoils everything when he thinks he teaches. He can never teach it. He says, Acharya, Acharat, Acharya. He must do it. You see the pediatric psychology, you will see a child never learns instruction. It copies exactly what you do. If you put a child in France, a Bengali or a Hindi child in France, you will see the French guy, the small fellow, after coming from that country after 1 year, is speaking full French. You 30 years old boy, if you go to France and try to pick it up, you may need another 30 years to speak in that fluency. It proves the child absorbs everything. What happens? We are completely unaware of that. So, the childhood bringing up is the real bringing up of India, of country, of nation. We have so nicely neglected, striving for big issues. What have issues brought to us? Nothing. Glory to slavery? We are crypto slave till today. Absolutely. Swamiji says that's why. Will India die? He says one place, the tremendous, completely glittering flood of materialism is engulfing all the world. He's telling in the 1800s, 150 years back. And he says, I am afraid all the Indian religion and customs and culture will be flooded away, vanished. Will it be vanished? Will India die? Then he says, let the flood come. Let it flood all the bad, the rotten, the tyrannies, the rats. Let it flood everything away, wash away. And what is eternal and true for all the time, who can destroy it? That means the eternal truth should again give a test of truth by surviving. This is called time testing. Now, this prudence, this universality is rooted deep into the human nature. It is not a paternal property of any country or any person. That is the point. That is what the Sanatana Dharma proclaims. The beauty is, when I say I am a Christian, I automatically becoming glorified with Christianity and devoted. I create a Christian, non-Christian world. This is a set theory, simple. All the religions do that. But Hindu speaking, what we call Hindu, not in the today's terminological implication. The real Sanatana Dharma, that's why you say. We call always for everybody. Sarveva Bantu Sukhina. Always everybody. It must be applied to everybody. It is the rule. So, this everybody-ness has no other counter set. So there is no other set because it is the universal set itself. So this has made it survive. Now, Swamiji says we need feeling first. He said, do you feel for them? What trodden? What eating? What the descendant of rishis, of the highest thinkers, they are becoming less than an animal? This is the point. It is not a rule, Swamiji says clearly. It is a feeling. First feel. He says in a very elaborate way what is that feeling is. Have you really lost your sleep by thinking and thinking? He says your head is reeling. It is no eulogy. It is true. If you feel for them. Then he says if it is really lost your sleep and taken into completely in the verge of madness, you're in the first step of becoming a reformer. Not before that. Then he says, have you chalked out any possible way out? Really? Then you are in the second phase. Then he says, have you the guts and strength to execute it? Then he says, Sirdar to Sardar. He is a Sardar, he is a leader who can sacrifice. We are all aware of privilege. We are completely bypassing responsibilities. No, there are a lot of things to be told, a lot of things are there. Time is extremely short. But Swamiji says, bring light to the Brahmins and bring more light to the Shudras because they need more. Chaturvarnam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashaha. I know much of reading a good book does not make me superior. It makes me more responsible. Responsible man is honored by society as superior. It becomes other way around. A history of development becomes a history of torture. What is equality? We call it equality, Samyavada. The crypto communism is eating everything. What is equality? Not cutting the oak tree to the level of a weed or a grass. They become equal. That is not equality. That is unnatural torture. Come to the point. Proper narrative should be used. What is equality? By nature, by law, nothing is equal. Everything is different. That's why it is diverse. That is why I am I and you are you. There is difference. We search for difference. How am I first? He is second. I am different. How is more earning than me? He is different. How is the leader? I am not. He is different. We are always searching for a difference, but for a good difference. Now, we get a nature with differences and difference and diversity only. That is called nature. What a good gardener do? Its work is to make a floral garden. All the flowers will bloom to its best. A rose should be best rose. A marigold should be marigold, best marigold. A belva fruit should be best. All have different manners. All have different characters. But it is the person behind the nurturing of the trees and everything that makes the difference. One very good shloka is there. Amantram aksharam nasti, nasti moolam anaushadham, ayogyo manusho nasti, yoyako tatra durlabhaha. There is not a single word which is not mantra. There is not a single tree which is not a medicine. There is not a single person who is not excellent. It is the person who really identifies and nurtures it that is real rare. Yojako tatra durlabha. So we must gather around a person who is a friend and guide for all, which will convince our own selves first. We must convince ourselves. We must convince teachers, parents to speak about the glory of India. First thing is that I am an Indian. I am the child of that mother, which mother gives recluse to the whole world. And I am proud of that. I can execute that. That strength and that conviction should first be brought. Swamiji says, rest will be taken care by itself. Then he says, starting, give. It is not taking. He says in many places, the world is for not for your pleasure. Now, that fiery young hearts should be gathered. Does not mean 30 years old man is young lust, then 40, 50-year-old. We speak of mind. We may find a 20 years old older than 80 years man. An 80 years person may be chirping like an youth. So the youth is meant by mind and of course body. So India is a big phenomenon. We Indian must be responsible to nurture it. Responsibility starts from knowing India first. Knowing the conclusions. I said it. Say 10 to 15,000 years of history. What tremendous amount of diversity may happen. See one family. 30 years, one family. If you write the history of a family, there will be a big history book. So much changes, so much alteration, so much logics, doubts, quarrels, arguments. What could have happened in India? Uncomparable. It is our responsibility, divine responsibility, to go to the root of India and moot the whole Indians with that complete nectar giving words of all are potentially divine. Swamiji says, everything, each soul is potentially divine. Then he says, temples, creeds, churches, Bibles, religious books, everything are but secondary details. We must know the primary thing first. That is the proclamation. Swamiji says, India has put the whole world into infinite debt by discovering the unity and the permanent divinity of all human beings. It need not give anything more. We Indians must not suffer for that. We must know the dharma has to be kept. Swamiji says it is the religion alone. And he says, do the development of everybody without disturbing their religion. You have no rights. What we go to England or anywhere, Swamiji says, you ask which party you belong to. They are political by race. They will say you. Everything details. Which religion? No, I do go to church. That's all, finished. Or belong to this and this sect. You ask Hindu which race you belong to. They will be giving you the philosophy of the highest. What Vaishnava is, what Bhakta is, where there is no jati for a Bhakta. They will give all in details. You say which political? अरे कुछ नहीं जानते बाबू, हम तो यहाँ रहते हैं, जो देते हैं रास्ता चलते हैं, नहीं दिया क्या करेगा, हम जी लेते हैं राम के सहारे. Can you defeat them? Who does not hanker for bread? Who does not hanker? You are making a market to hanker. We are inviting market so we can hanker more. Swamiji says, our people have been put to poverty, severe animalistic poverty for ages. They should be given a complete open ground to enjoy first. He used to weep when he was sleeping in the London, in the bed of cushions and carpets and luxury. He could not sleep in the bed. He slept in the carpet and through night, not to show others. He wept that my Indian people so great in heart. You can never find it in the whole world. But they are sleeping for a small enjoyment, for a sweet. They are getting kicks. What the looters have done for India, they've taken every resource. They've killed Indian masons. They've killed Indian muslin makers. Taken the whole thing and resold to India. a tremendous black history of tyranny. Our intelligentsia, India should disclose them, not to accuse them, show them this is what you have done to us. And there are a lot of work is going on that line also. So Swamiji says enjoyment should come. Why should they not enjoy? So Swamiji says bring food, bring education. Once you educate properly, India will definitely rise. Swamiji mentions one. This is the last thing I will tell you. Mentions one wonderful thing. Mada Lasa, the knower of Brahman, one lady. She was giving birth to the small children, and from the very beginning, she used to say, "Tattvamasi Niranjana. You are without any stain originally. You are that supreme truth which will not destroyed. वो कभी मरता नहीं, कुछ नहीं होता. ये सत्य को जान लो." The child is absorbing the idea like a blotting paper. That makes a man of the man. That is true India. So, and we are all the descendant of rishis, of the great seers, the same blood in our veins. We are ashamed to speak about our social discoordination in front of their tremendously nasty racism of the West. Is it our proud things? We must think. Get the pride first back. Swamiji says, Swadar pe bolo, ham Bharatdasi. He used to call people, hey Mahavir, utho, jago. Anybody used to say Mahavir, why? You are a great warrior, don't forget. And by copying the Western materialistic things, we have become real rot. Rishis had golden things. You see, the Raikva Janashruti, they had golds. They could refuse golds. They could bargain. There is no problem. But not like leaving the muslin cloth. You go for a bullet-stricken or torn jeans for 5,000 rupees. Leaving the tremendous amount of heightening Drupad and classical music. You go for a 3-string chord of guitar and singing some chords of, copying some chords. This is useless. And waiting for the praise from those countries. Whole India should strike very hard to make their own everything. I would really appreciate that. India should be completely independent from India inside. And that will develop us. So-called downtrodden, they will come up. That is not a big issue. They are my brother. I am not giving them privilege. I am giving them proper right back. Why should I not give? This is India. And that is why India, in spite of all these things, all these interactions, Indians are loved throughout the world. Somehow, with all buffooneries and boosting on and bullyings, India may appear to be little meek. Somebody says meek Indians, in a very surreptitious way, in a very fun way. Meek Indians. But they come to know Indians are excellent. They often and on declare it on screen. Every now and then. Think of all the coming up companies and all who are making big shows, economic shows. Money ended. Think. So that is headed by Indians. And what we get? That Indian was once upon a time a child of a farmer or a cobbler. We must be knowing our tremendous heritage, our very, very rich heritage we call Abhijatya. It is not Daulat, it is Abhijatya, the real royalty. We are royal. So, even we call our Atma Jnana, what do we call it? We call it Swarajya Siddhi. We are the kings. Just know that you are the king and make everybody know. Swamiji says, flood India and flood the world with the tremendous power of spirituality. So my namaskar to everybody. I have taken a lot of time, but it is a big issue, big point to be discussed. But it may go on. It's a very good, very laudable beginning on your part that you have started, and especially the ex-teachers and thinkers have started. I should plead from my side. Please go through Swami Vivekananda's works. Very small amount does not need that you should finish the whole work. Just small works you just read, you will be converted to a completely jumping horse youth energy, and you can really help. We all can help the development of India, and we can take the whole. I will just quote with one small sentence. I just remembering now. We can embrace the whole world. Swamiji says in the same line. He says one thing. If you have ever felt, have you ever felt of going out and stretching your palms? And have you ever felt to embrace the whole universe with love? Have you ever felt it? Somebody says. Then he says himself, if you ever have felt, if you have felt of doing that, you have not done it. If you have ever felt of doing that, going out and stretch your hand and engulf the whole world in love, if you ever felt that, he says, you have felt God. So this is the definition of God according to Sanatana Dharma. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.